Let's begin with some news that we actually started discussing last week on the show, guys, and we sounded like the Clash. Should I stay or should I go now? Talking about Frank Lampard, we have our answer. He's gone. The players were supposed to practice this morning. They were told not to show up. We now know why. He has been relieved of his duties as Chelsea manager. And Ollie, I'll begin with you. How do you think his coaching tenure, which began in July of 2019, will be remembered?
Well, it's not going to live particularly long in the memory, I don't think. You know, he was obviously every Chelsea manager is brought in to win titles, and he hasn't done that. He would probably say he hasn't been given the chance or the time to do that. But the way it's transpired over the past few weeks, I just really question, at least from the outside looking in, how committed Chelsea ever were to Frank Lampard. You know, he came in at a time, it was a difficult time for the club. It had all been a bit fractured under Maurizio Sarri. Eden Hazard had been sold and they couldn't replace him because of the transfer ban they had. So I think they needed someone to just kind of steady the ship a little bit, someone who could work with the young players, which Frank Lampard did very well. He'd had a couple of them at Derby County, obviously. And you've seen players like Mason Mount really come along and become important first-team players at Chelsea. But for me, if Chelsea had really believed in Frank Lampard, the coach, and the long-term solution, you don't pull the plug based on the last few weeks. You know, it's so quick, and that just makes me think that this was always likely to come at any point they could see where there was, you know, an opening for them to get in, make a change, and go for a coach that, for whatever reason, they prefer. Someone like Thomas Tuchel, obviously the appeal will be that he'll be able to work with Kai Havertz, Timo Werner, players they've spent a lot of money on, and potentially get more out of them than Lampard was. But as I say, looking at the way this has transpired, I'm not sure Chelsea were ever really convinced that Lampard was the long-term solution. I personally think he's got the makings of a very good coach, and I suspect he'll land on his feet, but he's not really been given a full chance at Chelsea.
Based upon what is he going to be a great coach? Like, this is what I don't get. And I completely disagree with you. I think Chelsea was committed enough to Frank to let them banish the most expensive goalkeeper in the world in Kepa, bring in a new goalkeeper, spend $222 million on squad upgrades over the course of this season, as well as entrusting his youth movement, bringing young players through a team that into a club that really demands results. They were completely committed to Frank Lampard, but 9th place, 7 points in their last 8 games, Ollie. And I think there was a lot of people internally looking to them being played off the park against Manchester City, embarrassed by Leicester, saying this manager's not good enough. Perhaps we made a mistake. It was too much too soon for Frank Lampard at Chelsea. And I think they're trying to rectify that mistake right now by bringing in a manager with a track record of winning.
I think that was always part of the problem, though, was that players like Kepa, who had a lot of money spent on them, and again, Werner and Havertz are two more, were always going to win over Lampard's. And so there was no real impetus for those players to have to buckle down, to work harder, and to simply improve, because I think the players were always going to win. And that's just the way Chelsea work. And look, it's been successful for them. They don't mind dispensing of managers, even club legends. You know, it's hard to argue with the results they've had under Roman Abramovich, but I don't think you can really say that Frank Lampard's been given a real fair crack and the time that any manager needs to really put together a top team, particularly when you compare to the teams like Manchester City and Liverpool have been so dominant in England.